For years, the relationship between Prince Harry and the British royal family, especially with King Charles, has remained at the center of public attention. Once celebrated as the cheeky, warm-hearted prince beloved by the people, Harry has gradually transformed into one of the most divisive figures in modern royal history. His decision to step back from royal duties alongside Meghan Markle, the explosive interview with Oprah Winfrey, and his memoir Spare, which revealed unsettling truths about life behind palace walls, have only widened the rift between father and son. Time and again, the world has asked, is there still any thread strong enough to mend a bond that seems irreparably broken? In recent months, silence seemed to suggest the possibility of reconciliation, a faint hope that the storm might finally subside. Yet instead, the picture has grown darker than ever. Sources close to the palace suggest that King Charles is now preparing to confront a new wave of turmoil directly tied to Harry. This time, it is no longer about private disagreements. It is about something far more serious. The king, with great sorrow, is said to be delivering a message that his own son must face a series of controversies described as unimaginable. Those very words not only foreshadow an incoming storm of public scrutiny, but also hint at secrets powerful enough to shake the already fragile foundation of the monarchy. What could possibly drive King Charles to make such a bitter choice? And what exactly lies behind these so-called unimaginable controversies? Are they merely the inevitable consequences of years of unresolved conflict? Or is there something far more calculated hidden within the corridors of Buckingham Palace? Join us as we uncover the untold story behind the king's heartbreaking announcement, a story where honor, power, and the bond between father and son are tested in ways the world has never seen before. And if you're fascinated by these hidden truths of the royal family, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any of our latest revelations. For generations, the British monarchy has guarded its internal matters with utmost discretion. The reading of a sovereign's will is traditionally treated as a sacred and private moment, a quiet act of remembrance and transition. But this time, secrecy has shattered. Queen Elizabeth's final wishes, long assumed to be locked away from public scrutiny, have become the centerpiece of a battle that is not only personal, but also deeply political and institutional. At the heart of this conflict is Princess Anne, often described as the embodiment of royal duty. Known for her unwavering loyalty, blunt honesty, and no-nonsense approach, Anne has never been one to mince words. By revealing the contents of her mother's will, she has ignited a chain of consequences that no one, least of all Harry and Meghan, could have anticipated. According to sources close to the family, Queen Elizabeth's will contained a hidden clause so shocking that it immediately cast a shadow over the Sussexes' already fragile future. The clause, kept secret until now, effectively strips Prince Harry and Meghan of any financial support from the royal household. This was not a trivial decision. It was a deliberate safeguard by the late Queen, reflecting her concerns about Harry and Meghan's increasingly independent path. By ensuring that the couple could not rely on royal resources, the Queen sought to protect the monarchy from being undermined by their decisions and public actions. In essence, it was both a protective measure and a message. The monarchy would not bankroll independence. The Queen's foresight was remarkable. She recognized the potential turbulence Harry and Meghan's choices might bring and acted decisively to secure the stability of the crown. The clause went further than money. It hinted at the possibility of limiting titles if the couple distanced themselves further from royal duties. For Harry and Meghan, this revelation was devastating. For years, they had attempted to carve out a space for themselves beyond the palace walls, painting themselves as global figures, philanthropists, and media personalities. Yet, the will revealed a harsh truth. The monarchy was not willing to let them drift away unscathed. The timing of this revelation only deepened the emotional blow. In recent months, Prince Harry had spoken openly of his yearning to repair fractured family ties. In a heartfelt BBC interview, he admitted the pain of estrangement, lamenting that his children may never know their British homeland in the way he once did. His words were raw and vulnerable. "I don't see a world in which I bring my wife and children back to the UK." It was, in many ways, a cry for reconciliation, a desire to bridge the chasm that had grown between him and his father, King Charles, as well as the rest of the family. But instead of healing, Harry's public statement seemed to have the opposite effect. He accused the king of ignoring his calls and criticized the lack of adequate security for his family when visiting Britain. These remarks, though perhaps honest, were met with silence from Buckingham Palace. For Princess Anne, they crossed an unforgivable line. Sources close to the royals reveal that Anne took Harry's words as a personal betrayal. To her, such grievances should never be aired in public, but resolved privately within the family circle. Her loyalty to the crown has always been absolute, and in her eyes, Harry's public criticism not only tarnished the institution, but also dishonored the memory of the Queen herself. Anne's reaction was not simply emotional, but deeply principled. She reportedly views Harry's choices as reckless, jeopardizing not only his own future, but also the position of his children. In her mind, Harry has made his return to the royal fold nearly impossible. It was Anne, then, who brought the hidden clause into the light. And in doing so, she effectively sealed the fate of the Sussexes. The consequences of this revelation have been swift and brutal. For Harry and Meghan, the financial independence they once championed has now been cemented into law. What may have seemed like a choice is now a permanent reality. No royal funds, no fallback, no lifeline from the crown. Even more troubling is the suggestion that the clause opens the door to a review of their titles. For the Sussexes, who have built much of their global platform on their royal status, such a move would be catastrophic. Without the recognition of Duke and Duchess, their brand, and by extension their influence, would suffer a major blow. The couple, once celebrated for breaking free from royal tradition, now find themselves isolated. Their bridge to the monarchy has been burned behind them. What began as a private matter has spiraled into a public controversy that threatens to rip apart the fragile fabric of the royal family. The stakes are higher than ever. This is no longer just about one couple's estrangement. It has become a test of the monarchy's resilience in an era of global scrutiny and shifting values. For supporters of Harry and Meghan, the Queen's hidden clause is seen as a cruel punishment, a refusal to acknowledge the legitimacy of their desire for independence. For defenders of the monarchy, it is a necessary safeguard, ensuring that the institution cannot be exploited by those who reject its responsibilities. Caught in the middle is the British public, watching as a once private dynasty becomes increasingly defined by its public battles. So, where does this leave Prince Harry and Meghan Markle? For now, they remain in the eye of the storm, their future clouded by uncertainty. What is clear, however, is that the Queen's final wishes have reshaped the landscape. The monarchy has drawn its line in the sand, and the Sussexes may find that there is no way back. Princess Anne's role in all of this cannot be overstated. By revealing the hidden clause, she has not only defended her mother's legacy, but also reinforced her own reputation as the monarchy's iron guardian. To Anne, the crown comes first, always and without exception. As the world watches, one truth has become undeniable. The era of quiet, dignified silence in the royal family is over. The will of Queen Elizabeth II has unleashed a storm that may forever change the House of Windsor. For Harry and Meghan, the consequences could not be more profound. Prince Harry's life has been a striking departure from the conventional. Raised within the intricate confines of the British royal family and later shaped by his military service, he has long been recognized for a blend of charisma and a defiant streak that set him apart. Throughout his journey, he has contended with relentless public scrutiny and profound personal trials. Yet, few could have foreseen the seismic events that would ultimately unsettle the very bedrock of the monarchy and irrevocably transform his path. Now, at the age of 40, Prince Harry has chosen to lay bare a truth that many had quietly suspected for years. To fully grasp the weight of his revelation, however, we must first delve into the intricate narrative that precedes it, a story rooted in the disintegration of a marriage that captivated and divided a nation. The union of Diana and Charles stands as one of the most scrutinized and storied marriages of the 20th century. What appeared, at first glance, to possess all the hallmarks of a fairy tale swiftly descended into a public and anguished debacle. In 1981, Diana, then a young woman unseasoned in the labyrinthine ways of royalty, wed Charles, the heir apparent to the British throne. Their wedding, a spectacle witnessed by millions across the globe, was an affair of grandeur that seemed to promise an idyllic romance. To the world, it was the embodiment of a storybook love. Yet, beneath this meticulously crafted veneer, the truth of their relationship was anything but harmonious. The marriage soon gave rise to one of the most startling revelations of its time. Charles had long been entangled in a complex liaison with Camilla, a figure from his past predating his introduction to Diana. Camilla Parker Bowles, with her aristocratic lineage and greater familiarity with the royal sphere, had captured Charles's affection well before the pressures of tradition intervened. Bound by the expectations of the monarchy and the weight of public perception, Charles was steered toward Diana, whose youth and beauty rendered her a seemingly ideal consort in the eyes of the establishment. Diana, for her part, entered the marriage with a heart full of genuine devotion to Charles. Yet, the foundations of their bond began to crumble almost as soon as they were laid. It became increasingly apparent that Charles's emotional allegiance remained tethered to Camilla, a reality that carved a deep and irreparable divide between the newlyweds. Despite Diana's earnest attempts to win her husband's favor and adapt to the exacting demands of royal life, Charles persisted in his clandestine connection with Camilla, a betrayal that wounded Diana profoundly. The strain of this triangular entanglement grew ever more visible as the years unfolded, exacerbated by a burgeoning media fascination with their private discord. Diana, beloved as the people's princess, began to peel back the layers of her internal turmoil, offering glimpses into the personal cost of her gilded cage. As time wore on, the disintegration of their relationship became undeniable. Diana, once celebrated for her poise and elegance, bore the visible marks of her distress. She grew more candid about the emotional toll exacted by her marriage, articulating the pain and isolation she endured. Meanwhile, Charles's attachment to Camilla proved increasingly difficult to conceal, with reports of furtive rendezvous and intercepted conversations seeping into the public domain. The once unshakable image of unity between Diana and Charles faltered, their growing estrangement palpable during public engagements. A couple once perceived as inseparable had, in the eyes of the world, drifted irrevocably apart. Diana, renowned for her compassion and tireless commitment to charitable causes, steadfastly carried out her royal obligations, though the toll on her personal life grew increasingly evident. In contrast, Charles became ever more absorbed in his relationship with Camilla, a preoccupation that only deepened the rift between him and his wife. As the years unfolded, their marriage evolved into a poorly concealed truth, its fractures laid bare for all to see. Public fascination with the royal couple intensified, with a growing tide of sympathy swelling toward Diana as the full scope of Charles's infidelity emerged into the light. For Diana, the emotional wreckage wrought by Charles's affair with Camilla cut deep, leaving wounds that would resonate through the rest of her life. In later interviews, she laid bare her sense of isolation and abandonment, confessing to a profound lack of support both within the royal family and in her marriage. The cumulative strain of these years began to erode her well-being, a silent burden she bore beneath her public grace. The decisive rupture came in 1992 with the publication of Diana, Her True Story, a revelatory work by journalist Andrew Morton. Through its pages, Diana offered an unvarnished and intimate recounting of her anguish, her struggles, and the stark reality of her union with Charles. The book sent shockwaves across the globe, exposing the depth of Diana's emotional turmoil and shedding unflinching light on Charles's liaison with Camilla. For the royal family already weathering relentless public scrutiny, the widening chasm between the Prince and Princess of Wales could no longer be dismissed. Buckingham Palace issued a somber announcement, stating with regret that the couple had resolved to separate, though emphasizing that no divorce was planned and their constitutional roles remained intact. The formal separation in 992 marked the beginning of an arduous and contentious unraveling. Charles tethered to Camilla by a bond spanning years, and Diana, profoundly scarred by her husband's betrayal, embarked on divergent paths. Even amidst this fracture, the royal establishment endeavored to project an image of unity to the world. Diana's public adoration endured. Indeed, her stature only grew in the wake of the split, while Charles pressed forward with Camilla, though their relationship remained a lightning rod for controversy and struggled to gain widespread acceptance. To many, Camilla lingered as the figure who had precipitated the collapse of Charles's marriage to Diana, a perception that shifted only grudgingly over time. For years, Charles and Camilla maintained a low profile, navigating the unrelenting gaze of a judgmental public. By 96, the divorce between Diana and Charles was finalized, drawing a definitive close to a turbulent chapter that left an indelible mark on both their lives. The repercussions of their union's demise reverberated through the royal family, altering its fabric irrevocably, while the media's fixation on their personal sagas showed no sign of abating. In time, Charles wed Camilla in 2005, a union that followed years of public resistance. Though controversial to some, it was broadly viewed as the long overdue resolution of a decade-spanning love triangle. Yet this milestone could neither erase the lingering scars of his earlier unfaithfulness, nor fully reshape the public's enduring memory of his marriage to Diana. Unbeknownst to many, however, fresh insights into their relationship would later surface, revelations that Prince Harry himself would eventually corroborate. That story, though, awaits further exploration. Diana's life after her separation from Charles was filled with both public attention and personal turmoil. Among the most talked about aspects of her post-marriage life was the fact that she also had a relationship during her marriage, a relationship with James Hewitt, a man who would become one of the most prominent figures in her life. This affair, which took place during the 1980s and 1990s, was seen by many as Diana's way of striking back at Charles, whose affair with Camilla Parker Bowles had already been made public. But who was James Hewitt, and how did he become such an integral part of Diana's life during that time? James Hewitt was born on April 30th, 1958, in Durham, England. He came from a well-to-do family, with his father being a businessman. The Hewitt family had a long history of military service, and James followed in their footsteps, eventually pursuing a career in the British Army. Educated at prestigious schools, James went to the Dragon School in Oxford before attending Eton College, one of the most renowned schools in the country. After finishing his education, he joined the British Army, where he was commissioned as an officer in the Royal Artillery. It was during his time in the military that James's life would take a turn that would ultimately link him to Diana. He was stationed at the prestigious Sandhurst Military Academy, where he trained to become a tank commander. He was known for his good looks, charm, and athleticism, which made him popular among his peers and later with Lady Diana. But it was his military career, along with his connections to the royal family, that would bring him into Diana's orbit. Diana first met James when he was working as an instructor for the Household Cavalry, a prestigious division of the British Army. At the time, Diana was still married to Charles, but their relationship was already in shambles. Diana had become increasingly unhappy in her marriage, feeling isolated, neglected, and emotionally abandoned by her husband. Charles, on the other hand, had already rekindled his relationship with Camilla, and Diana was left to cope with the pain of being in a loveless marriage. When Diana met James, it was clear that there was an instant connection between them. James was someone who could easily charm people with his looks and personality, and he struck Diana as different from the royal world she was a part of. Their relationship began as a friendship, with James offering Diana the companionship and emotional support that she had longed for. Over time, their bond deepened, and it eventually turned into a full-blown affair. The affair was kept secret for a while, as both Diana and James were careful to protect their privacy. But as is often the case with high-profile figures, rumors began to spread. The British tabloids, which had been closely following Diana and Charles's troubled marriage, soon began to catch wind of the relationship. In 992, the affair between Diana and James became public knowledge, and it was widely reported in the media. For many, Diana's relationship with James was seen as a way for her to take control of her own narrative and assert her independence after years of emotional pain caused by her marriage to Charles. Her affair with James was viewed by some as a response to Charles's own infidelity with Camilla. At a time when Diana was under immense public scrutiny, the affair became one of the most talked about aspects of her personal life. It was seen by some as a way for Diana to strike back at Charles and to show that she too had the power to pursue her own romantic interests. However, the relationship between Diana and James was not without its challenges. The constant media attention, which had already been a source of stress for Diana, only intensified when her affair became public. James, who had initially enjoyed the attention that came with being linked to the princess, soon found himself under the microscope as well. The pair struggled with the pressure of being constantly followed by paparazzi and facing public scrutiny at every turn. Despite the challenges they faced, Diana and James's relationship continued for several years. But as time passed, it became clear that the relationship was not sustainable. James, who had been a major source of emotional support for Diana during her difficult marriage, found himself caught up in the whirlwind of fame and the pressures that came with being involved with the most famous woman in the world. Meanwhile, Diana's life continued to be filled with turmoil, with her relationship with Charles still causing emotional pain even after their separation. By the early 1990s, Diana's relationship with James had started to cool, and by 1992, they had officially ended their affair. While Diana continued to be seen as a beloved figure by the public, her relationship with James had already played a significant role in her post-divorce life. The affair had offered Diana a way to reclaim her own sense of self and take control of her happiness, something she had struggled with during her marriage to Charles. James, after his relationship with Diana ended, returned to his military career for a while before moving on to other ventures. Like many others who were involved with Diana, James Hewitt became a part of the larger story of her life after her marriage to Charles. Their relationship, though it ended years before Diana's tragic passing, was a symbol of her search for love, happiness, and emotional fulfillment. But one thing from their relationship, one rumor, would come to haunt the whole British monarchy. Two confused boys. Prince Harry's early life was marked by turbulence and upheaval, not only in terms of his public duties as a member of the British royal family, but also due to the personal struggles his parents, Charles and Diana, went through. While much of the public's attention focused on the dramatic breakdown of Diana and Charles's marriage, the effects on their children, especially Harry, were profound. The impact of their separation, Charles's affair with Camilla, and the subsequent divorce left lasting scars on Harry, who was just a young child at the time. Harry was born in 1984, the second son of Charles and Diana. His older brother, William, had been born just 2 years earlier, in 1982. Despite their privileged positions, Harry and William were not immune to the tension and turmoil within their family. Charles and Diana's relationship had always been strained, but the public revelations about Charles's affair with Camilla and the eventual collapse of their marriage sent shockwaves through the royal family, affecting their children in ways that were both subtle and overt. For Harry, the news of his father's affair was not just a matter of public embarrassment, it was a deeply personal betrayal. As a young boy, he didn't fully understand the intricacies of his parents' marriage, but was keenly aware of the changes happening around him. The emotional toll on Diana, who had already suffered years of isolation and neglect in her marriage, was something Harry could not escape. He, like his brother William, watched his mother's pain unfold, knowing that their family was no longer the united front it had once appeared to be. The breakdown of Charles and Diana's marriage became increasingly public in the 1990s. The media, which had long been fascinated by the royal family, turned its attention to the growing tensions between the couple. Diana's struggles with mental health, her own infidelities, and the emotional neglect she experienced at the hands of Charles became fodder for the tabloids. For the children, this was an unbearable situation. They were young and had no control over the public narrative surrounding their family, but the pressure was inescapable. Harry was only around 10 years old when his parents officially separated in 1992. At that age, children are not always able to process the emotional complexity of such a situation, but they feel the tension and the changes. Harry's relationship with his father, Charles, was already strained, but the separation only intensified this. Harry found it difficult to reconcile the image of his father, the future King of England, with the reality of a man who had betrayed his mother and, by extension, his family. While William, the older of the two boys, often took on the role of protector and mediator, Harry was more openly rebellious, acting out in ways that would later become well documented. As a young boy, Harry had a difficult time accepting the idea of his parents' divorce, particularly the fact that his father had been unfaithful to Diana. The divorce, finalized in 1996, was a public and painful affair, with both Charles and Diana airing their grievances in interviews, memoirs, and public statements. This put additional strain on the children, who were caught in the middle of a family rift that played out in the media for the entire world to see. For Harry, the divorce marked the beginning of a more complex relationship with the monarchy and his place within it. As he moved into his teenage years, he found it increasingly difficult to navigate the expectations placed on him as a royal while dealing with the fallout from his parents' marriage. His rebellious streak became more evident as he grew older. He acted out in school, was known for his mischievous behavior, and became more defiant of the royal family's strict protocols. While William was expected to eventually assume a greater role within the family, Harry seemed to be seeking a way to break free from the weight of his royal responsibilities, which were tied directly to the painful memories of his parents' divorce. The media's portrayal of Harry and William during their formative years only compounded their struggles. As the children of one of the most famous and scrutinized couples in the world, they were constantly in the spotlight. Photographs of Harry and William with their mother were widely circulated, and their emotional struggles were fodder for the tabloids. The divorce was not a private matter for the royal family, it was a spectacle. For Harry, the pressure was immense. Despite this, Diana did her best to shield her sons from the media frenzy surrounding her divorce from Charles. She continued to be a strong presence in their lives, offering them love, support, and guidance. However, the stress of the divorce took its toll on Diana as well. The public drama of her separation from Charles, combined with her ongoing struggles with mental health, left her exhausted. She was also fighting for her own independence, which meant that her relationship with her children, while strong, was also challenged by her own emotional battles. Harry's relationship with his father continued to be strained through the divorce. While Charles remained a part of his life, it was clear that the bond between father and son was not as strong as it had been before the breakdown of the marriage. Charles was often described as distant and emotionally unavailable, especially during Harry's teenage years. This lack of emotional closeness from both of his parents left Harry feeling isolated and misunderstood. This loneliness contributed to his growing defiance. But what hurt Harry the most was something gruesome he had come forward about recently. Prince Harry's revelation. For many years, rumors swirled around the British royal family, particularly about Prince Harry's paternity, a controversial and persistent theory widely reported by the press. Suggested that Major James Hewitt, a former British Army officer and Diana's lover, might have been Harry's biological father. This idea wasn't just a brief tabloid buzz, it became a deeply entrenched narrative, amplified by the striking physical similarities between Harry and James, as well as their shared military background. Even Harry himself was led to believe this was the truth. James Hewitt became a well-known figure in the 1980s, largely due to his relationship with Diana. Their affair lasted for several years and became one of the most sensational stories surrounding the royal family. As a member of the British Army, James was seen as a strong, rugged man, a far cry from the more reserved and distant Prince Charles. The theory about Hewitt being Harry's father gained momentum due to several factors, with the most obvious being the physical similarities between the two men. Harry's red hair, a distinctive trait that he shares with James, was one of the key points that fueled the rumors. It seemed so striking that people began to speculate if there was more to the resemblance than just a coincidence. The two also shared similar facial features, and as Harry grew older, many couldn't help but point out how much he resembled the man Diana had been romantically involved with. The media fanned the flames, constantly comparing photos of Harry and James, pointing out the uncanny similarities. Another factor that contributed to the rumors was the fact that both Harry and James had a strong connection to the military. Harry served in the British Army, rose through the ranks, and became known for his work in the armed forces, including serving on the front lines in Afghanistan. The press saw this parallel as another point of comparison with James, who had also served in the military. Harry's own beliefs about his paternity were complicated by the media attention. For a period, Prince Harry found himself swayed by the whispers suggesting that James Hewitt might be his father. The unrelenting deluge of media coverage surrounding the affair between Diana and Hewitt must have weighed heavily on him, a young man coming of age amid a profoundly public familial upheaval. It is hardly surprising that Harry, grappling with the intricate demands of royal existence, would find the persistent questioning of his paternity a source of deep disquiet. Indeed, for several years, he appeared to entertain the possibility that Hewitt could be his father, an assumption fueled by the rumor's sheer ubiquity and the press's dogged insistence, which lent them an air of inevitability within his narrative. Now, at the age of 40, Prince Harry has chosen to confront what many had long surmised. The truth regarding his lineage gradually crystallized for him over time. By 2014, Harry had come to the realization that the romantic entanglement between Diana and James Hewitt commenced only after his birth. Born in 1984, Harry predated the onset of his mother's affair with Hewitt, rendering it biologically implausible for James to be his father, a critical detail he would later underscore in a public reckoning with the falsehoods that had shadowed him. In a striking statement that reverberated through the headlines, Harry declared, "Despite the media's efforts to perpetuate this rumor, he is not my biological father, and the evidence is straightforward. His paternity," he affirmed, "was never genuinely in doubt. Basic chronology confirms Prince Charles as his true father." Yet, despite Harry's clarifications, the specter of these rumors has proven stubbornly resilient, with segments of the press refusing to relent even as emerging facts dismantle their claims. This ceaseless speculation over his origins ultimately propelled Harry to seek recourse through legal channels, targeting those outlets that persistently peddled tales of his supposed parentage. His pursuit of justice reflects a resolute stand against the enduring falsehoods that have encircled his identity. Though demonstrably baseless, the notion of James Hewitt as his father inflicted considerable emotional strain on Harry, a burden that continues to echo in his life. What further layers might this saga yet reveal? We invite your thoughts in the comments below.